All right, so today we're going to start talking about the lines. Now, the lines issue is the really interesting one, and I've had a really interesting time trying to getting this information together and working out how to do it. And I've made a couple of decisions about teaching the lines, which I think are really important, and I want to sort of lay those out at the beginning. I don't go into so much detail with the lines at this stage in this part of what we're going to talk about. So there's going to be lots of things I'm not going to talk about. And the reasons I'm not going to talk about it is that one of the things I've decided is that the only way that you can really understand lines is by looking at them. So there's actually not a lot of theory that can be said about lines, because until you can see the lines and recognize the lines in the hand, you're going to get miles off already. So a large part of learning to analyze the lines of the hand is actually looking at the lines and seeing which line is which one is where, and seeing what's going on where. I had a conversation with one of my other students in the UK, and we were doing a beginner's course with them, and we were doing the lines with them, and she said, well, what's my airline? It's so complicated. And she'd been doing handling for 10 years, and she still couldn't work out her airline. So we had a one-on-one session, and we looked at her airline and kind of clarified what it was all about. So, even if what I'm saying by that is, even if you're quite experienced at looking at hands, it can sometimes be quite difficult to work out which line is which and what they do. And the problem with lines in the hand is there's so many of them that people get completely lost in the detail of the lines. And that is really, really bad practice. It's really something that has to be completely avoided as much as possible, because and I really stress this again and again and again. You can actually do a complete hand reading and not look at the lines at all. And that's kind of what we've been doing up till now. I basically said, you actually don't even need to look at the lines, and you could do an hour and a half hand reading and not even mention lines at all. So that's kind of why I put the emphasis on hand shape, skin texture, fingerprints, palmatomatic and fingers and thumbs, is that you can actually, so much you can say about the person from those features alone. And all those features are significant because they are either don't change or they change relatively slowly, or once they've kind of set, like we're talking about the fingers, they're not going to change again. So they are consistent features of the hand, and therefore they represent consistent features of that person's consciousness. So that makes them very valuable, because they're going to be something that's going to last, and it's going to be true no matter whatever else is happening in their lives. And clearly what we do know about the lines is that the lines of the hands change over time. And when you know that the lines change over time, that tells us two things. First of all, that they're not as important as the things that don't change, because they do change. And second of all, that they are therefore reflections of our experiences. Now, what's important about that is understanding what the nature of an experience is. There is, and it's really, I'm going to stress this point, and I'm going to say it probably 5 times. It's really important to understand there is no such thing as an experience. People don't have experiences. Just listen, Kim. We'll get through this, okay? Just people do not have experiences. There's no such thing as an experience that you can have. People always talk about it. Oh, I had this amazing experience last week. Oh, I did this and it was a great experience. I had a experience. Great experience. People talk about it as if it's a thing. They talk about an experience as if it's a thing that they went and had. They've commodified life, actually, by the way, by doing that. They've made the experience into an object. And most people's relationship to life is exactly that they see what they're doing as a thing that's happening to them, or something that they're happening to. I went and jumped off the bridge on a bungee jump. It was an experience. I had the experience. And clearly, this is a fire element approach to understanding anything, because this is what fire people do. They have experiences because they want to learn by doing. They want to learn by experience. But what they fail to understand is what the hell an experience is. Because essentially, there is no such thing as an experience. If there's such a thing as an experience, then everybody's experience of jumping off a bridge with a bungee jump would be exactly the same. because that will be a quality that was inherent in the object that was always there. Like roses have a smell, and they always smell the same smell. If it's a particular rose, and everyone will smell the same rose, because that the rose smell is in the rose. The smell of the rose is the perfume of the rose. It's part of the rose. It's kind of inherent to that object. It's slightly more subtle than that, but there is no such thing as an experience. There's actually no such thing as an experience of the smell of a rose either. But the point is that people talk about their life as if they're having an experience. But what they do when they're saying that, basically, they're actually describing an epistemological relationship between themselves and the world around them. And what they're doing is, effectively, if you look at my hands, you can see they've created the experience here, and they've got themselves there. So there's a self having an experience. But that itself is actually not how it is at all. The thing about experiences is experiences are co-created. There is the external phenomena, the feeling of falling through the air, the color and the smell of the rose. But there is also the consciousness that apprehends that phenomenon. Which is to say, the experience is the interface of the external sensory data and the mind that apprehends that data. So an experience is a synthetic thing. So nobody has an experience as if the experience was externally valid, was externally existent as something that you can have. Everything is a co-creation. And so what you have to look at is how consciousness apprehends that experience. The best and the simplest example for this is if you see a rope or a hose pipe lying in the grass, and the grass is quite long, and you jump out of your skin and you scream, you know, because you think you've seen a snake. Have you had an experience of a snake? That's a question. You can answer it. You know, yes or no. Have you had an experience of a snake?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that's interesting because you kind of did, even though you didn't.
Exactly. But was it a snake that you experienced?
No.
Okay. So there you go. Right there, right then. There is no such thing as an experience to be had. Right there. Your internal apprehension of it, the felt sense of it, what a person would call their experience, was they experienced fear, they jumped for their life because they saw a snake. But actually they didn't see a snake. There was a misperception. And so what they saw, their mind added to the rest of it. So they saw a green curvy thing in the grass. They didn't perceive, there wasn't a clear discrimination or discernment of what that is. And then what they did was they reacted to that and had a whole reaction based upon and the emotional quality. I mean, those were real. I'm not saying they weren't real, that didn't have a fear response and didn't get full of adrenaline and run away or jump up and down, whatever. Those were real experiences. But so those were really experienced. But the point about it is it's not there was an experience that they had. They co-created that experience. And if it's true for a hose pipe or a rope lying in the grass, it's actually true for everything. Another really good example, a really simple, famous example, is a wet dream or a nocturnal emission. You know, if that can happen, then you're not actually in bed with a woman, but you think that you are. There's a real effect that's happening there, but it's all in your dream. So we can have a dream. A dream can be real. So you have an experience of your dream in that sense. So that again, but there's no external object, no physical existence that correlates with the thing that you've dreamt. Same thing with the hose. There's no snake that's the physical existence that correlates with your internal experience of it. So there is no such thing as an external experience that you can have. There are data, there's phenomena or sensory inputs, whether that be sight, smell, visual hallucination and thought objects like a dream. And then there's your response and your reaction to it. So when we say the lines show your experiences in life, they don't show events. They don't show things that happened. They show your responses. And that's a really important philosophical point, because that's a point that a lot of palmists get completely wrong when it comes to looking at the lines of the hands.